everyone, and welcome to the Stay-at-Home Baker. Today I'm going to be demonstrating how to make banana bars with brown butter frosting. This is a nice recipe to try if you have some ripe bananas and you'd like to make something other than banana bread. So for this recipe we'll need a 9x13 baking pan. We'll need some nonstick cooking spray. We'll need 1.5 cups of white sugar, 3/4 of a cup of butter that's been softened. We'll need 6 ripe bananas, 3 eggs that have been beaten, 2¼ cups of unbleached white flour. You will always want to use unbleached flour in your baking because white bleached flour will make your baking goods tough. We'll also need 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by preparing the bananas. I've peeled them and now I'm going to mash them. I like to use a potato masher. I think it's easier, but if you want, you can use a fork or whatever you're most comfortable with. So we want the bananas to be finely mashed. So now I'm going to take the butter and the sugar and head over to the mixer, and we're going to start with that next. So I forgot to mention that we will need to preheat our oven to 375 degrees. Now here at the mixer, I'm going to add my 3/4 of a cup of softened butter and our 1.5 cups of sugar. And I'm going to use the paddle attachment. And we're going to beat this until it's nice and fluffy. To stop and scrape the sides of the bowl down too a little bit. Next, I'm going to add the beaten eggs and the crushed bananas. Now when I beat this together, it's going to kind of have a curdled look, but that's normal. Once we add the flour and everything else, it's going to be fine. And we'll just scrape down the sides to make sure everything's mixed. Next, I'm going to add the flour, and I've already whisked in the 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda and the 1/2 teaspoon of salt in with the flour. So I'll just add that now. just start mixing that. And we'll just stop and scrape down the sides a few times. And the last thing we'll add is the teaspoon of vanilla. So we'll just mix the vanilla in, and then we'll be able to put it in the pan and stick it in the oven. And it's ready to go in the pan. So I've prepared my pan. I've sprayed it with nonstick cooking spray. So we'll pour the batter in. And just spread that out. So we're going to bake this in our 375 degree preheated oven for about 45 minutes. So let's put this in the oven. So the bars baked for 45 minutes, but just to make sure that they're done, I'm going to do a toothpick test. It looks good. There's a little bit of moist crumb on there, but that's just right. So we're going to let these cool just a little bit. We're going to start on the brown butter frosting now, because while this is still warm, we're going to be putting the frosting on it. So let's start on that now. So to make our brown butter frosting, we're going to need a saucepan and a whisk, a half a cup of butter, 4 cups of powdered sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla, and some milk, or I'm going to use some half and half. We'll start with 3 tablespoons, and then we'll add more as needed to make the frosting the right consistency. Before I start melting the butter, I'm going to sift the powdered sugar so that all the lumps will be taken out of it. And this will make our frosting a nice, smooth consistency. So I've melted the butter, and I'm going to bring it to a gentle boil. We don't want to burn the butter, but we just want to bring it to a nice brown color. So the butter is going to foam up, and then the foam is going to subside, and then it'll foam up again. And when it foams up the second time, then we'll start to see the color turn brown. And then we'll take it off the stove and we'll add the other ingredients. So now you can see the foam has dissipated, and once it foams up again, we'll start to see it turn brown. But we want to be careful we don't overcook it. We don't want to burn it. You can see in the center that the butter is brown. So So we'll take it off the heat now. So you can see our butter is beautifully browned. So now we'll add the other ingredients. I'm actually going to put it in the bowl with the powdered sugar because my saucepan is not big enough. And I think it'll make a huge mess if I try to put the powdered sugar in with the butter. And we'll add our 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And 3 tablespoons of milk, or half and half, whatever you have on hand. And we'll probably have to add more liquid. We'll see as we mix it if we need to add a little bit more. We want it to be a nice spreading consistency. So it's still a little bit thick, a little bit dry. I'll put another tablespoon in. Still a little bit thick. So I'll put 1 more tablespoon in. So that looks about the right consistency. We want to be able to spread it easily on the banana bars. Just make sure it's completely mixed. Our bars are still warm, so that's perfect. It'll make the spreading of the frosting a little bit easier. So we're just going to pour the frosting on there and spread it out. This frosting is pretty sweet. I think the bars, the banana bars, balance it out well, but if you don't like real sweet frosting, you can always put on less. You can just put a light coating of frosting on. Switch it around so it's a little easier here for me to reach the corner. And I'll just swirl the frosting a little bit to make it look pretty. So I'll let this cool and then we'll be able to cut it into bars. The banana bars are now ready to be cut. Because the frosting is on the rich side, I like to cut these in 24 bars. So to serve the bars, I piped some chocolate on my plate to make it look a little bit fancier. The first piece is always the hardest to get out. I hope you enjoyed watching. Happy baking.